Well, he's not even our senator no more on there.
No.
We got Galvin.
Yeah.
Galvin. He's a good guy too.
Okay. Finally ready. Sorry, I apologize. We'll start our June 21st, 2023 Hamburg IDA meeting. Roll call, Cam Paul. Here. Bob Hutchison. Here. Tom Moses. Here. Dana McGregor Clark.
Here.
Andy Palmer.
Here.
Mel Perkins.
Here.
Davis Bukowski.
Here.
Bob Reynolds.
Here.
Wayne Valentin.
Here.
Yeah, Jennifer and Mary. Next, our pledge of allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're 8:30, so.
No,
We gotta let the public know we're alive, you know.
We're in a sub.
Oh my God. No. What I don't understand is they bolt you in, you can't get out. That's the scary part to me getting anything.
Oh, I would die immediately if they got out.
It can only be open from the outside.
And they don't have, when they get the service, doesn't mean they get accident either.
No.
They can only have, that's why they're, even if they be sitting on the surface, because it's only open from the outside.
all right, see, just go to Disney. Motion on the June 21st, 2023 Hamburg, New York IDA Board of Directors meeting at 7:44 a.m.
So move.
Second.
First item on the agenda are the meeting minutes from May 17th, 2023.
So move.
Thank you, Janet.
Second.
Thank you, Davis. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is the financial report from May 31st, 2023.
Good morning, everybody. Just a light report today. We had total income of $3,978.58. Most all of it was from our earnings on CDs and interest earnings. Our expenses total $13,280.95. Most of it was our payroll and processing and stuff like that. There was nothing outstanding coming there. We did have a legal service issue for $625. So total expenses over income, we ended up $9,302.37 negative. So our final balance for this month for the Hamburg IDA is $980,258.11.
To approve.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Wen.
On the question,
Janet, yes, sir.
it says here that this, there's industrial, the CD matures on 4/23. That's still,
Oh, no, that'll be April 2024.
oh, so we
Yeah,
just
did roll it over.
Yeah,
did the interest rates change?
Yeah, the interest rates were 5 something.
Thank
So
you.
I'll send out an update with that. We can update that in minutes, just with the current rate.
Oh, yeah, we did that last month. Sorry, Mayor, I didn't see that.
Okay, on my update,
We need approval.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The second question, motion to approve.
So move. Oh,
Second.
no.
Oh, I'm
All right, we
sorry.
already got-
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Project closings, we did do the extension a couple months ago for KH and Staub. That project is still on. Has not closed yet. We did follow up with Mission Hills, just to get, again, what I've been talking in the past month, to provide notice to these companies to say that the extensions that we've been very generous about through COVID and working through various delays that, we're starting to put more pressure that they need to commit to these investments and make these investments in the community, so that the generous extensions will be drawing to a close. beyond, other circumstances that the board may seem fit. So they have until August, or they will need to seek an extension for the project. They're still working towards closing. We really don't have a substantial update, just that they're working towards closing. The other item is we did file for the employee retention credit. So we are due from the federal government $21,425. I checked on status of that yesterday, and it's similar or different from like your tax returns. There's no tracking mechanism. So we basically, just wait for it. Wait for a check. So we'll carry that until we receive that and are able to make that deposit. Some project activity updates. There was a project we were talking about on Jeffrey Boulevard and 10.6 vacant acres there. That site, the developer decided to not go forward with the project and instead is looking to sell the land. So that parcel is now for sale, so we'll carry that. Once we get the listing from the broker, we'll put that up on our website. We keep a lot of the available properties in Hamburg, the commercial properties. So we'll update our website with that. 290 Lake was a project that I just wanted to update. That was a project we were hearing, we had approved it. The project essentially never commenced. Now they're into village planning for a collision site. So 290 Lake and the adjacent property, which I believe is address 310, would be combined. And the 310 building, which was a former like tire place, that would be expanded for the collision shop pending the municipal entitlement approvals through the village. That is not compatible with IDA inducement. So they could certainly come to us, but within general municipal law, it would not be, it would more so be a retail project. But just so people know that development may be shifting from the multifamily to more of a retail project.
Hey, Sean, just, do they give a reason why that project's not going forward? Is it, a reason, or just didn't have financing, or?
No, I think the developer, some of the issues that, in talking with the developer, financing would be one, and just essentially the return, so seeking private investors, they just weren't, we're not seeing the return that they were hoping to have on the project.
Okay, thank you.
Still working with that project hit the news with Feedmore. They're have a great development in process that they're fundraising for in Hamburg on Camp Road. $90+ million project for a food terminal. We have potential to work with them. We're looking out potential for bond financing. So we have tax exempt bond financing, which could potentially support them with lower interest rate financing. So I have a meeting coming up next week on that. Cedar Land Development, which is working on financing for the acquisition of the Gateway building in Hamburg. We're still working with them, and they're still working towards financing and through the closing process. They have a draft application I'm working with them on, anticipating them in front of our board potentially in July. The Dick's Sporting Goods store has a potential purchaser. Janet had connected me with the owner, and I've been talking to them. It's unknown whether they'd be in need of IDA incentives, but that project is moving forward. So that long vacant building would be potentially occupied with a national distributor of essentially like Halloween costumes, party supplies, the likes of that.
Sorry, which building you're talking about?
It was Dick's Sporting Goods before they had moved into the Quaker Crossing. It's like
Back behind the Sears.
yeah,
Way in the back.
Yeah.
Like Sears, no, next door to the.
And they built the gym.
Oh, another big unfortunate one is Iobate. That Iobate building, which is on Jeffrey, that is now up for lease. So that building was actually the company was purchased by a private equity firm. they're moving operations, from best I understand, to Kentucky. So that building is 200,000 square feet. That building is now listed for lease with CBRE. So we're looking to backfill that. On the upside, you know, industrial sites are in demand. So I would see it being occupied hopefully in not too long a time. In talking with the owner, they're interested in leasing, they're not interested in selling. Another item that we've been carrying is next to IOV, probably about 15 acres of vacant land that they also own. And there's no interest in selling that or doing any development there, but there's, you know, some great opportunities on Jeffrey that we're working to market.
Didn't we originally do a deal with IOV, aren't they the Canadian health
Yeah,
supplement?
they're the distributor and manufacturer of like metabolite, various like supplements that you might
Yeah.
find at like GNC.
But we originally did the deal with them.
Oh, yeah, that pilot has been expired
Yeah.
for some time. Yes, yeah, so that at one point there was an inducement, but that's long since expired.
So they're moving their whole operation to Kentucky?
My understanding is, yes, yeah, they're essentially what they're doing is they're having a third party distribute their products for them, and that company is located in Kentucky. So IOV is no longer managing
So
the
the
contract.
contract is out.
Yes.
I was just curious on why. And they move for incentives. I know where I sit next to you.
Well, there is no current incentive on the.
You're right.
Advocacy and legislation, I wanted to highlight in my director report. There has been some talk regarding proposed legislation. Regarding withdrawing the state portion, or I'm sorry, the school portion of the abatement from an IDA pilot. So essentially, if this legislation would pass, a company or a developer approaching an IDA for incentives would have to appeal to the IDA, and then be potentially granted the sales tax exemption, the county tax discount, and the local municipality town tax discount. And then they would have to go back to the school board and seek the school tax discount, if they would choose to do so. So essentially, you know, we would not be an authority, although we're represented by the school districts in our municipality. We would not offer the tax discount consent to that. The narrative that has been put forth is that the school district is essentially losing money to these developments, to big business. But as we represent it, and as our work has ensued through the Hamburg IDA, there has been substantial new tax generation through the projects that have been put forth and that were moved forward through the IDA. Specifically, in 2023, we've collected $1.2 million in tax dollars for the school districts between Hamburg and Frontier. So that money, without the support of the IDA, may or may not have been generated. Likely not, especially in these times. We see how challenging the projects are to become profitable and, worth the risk for the developers. So we have drafted a letter that we will submit to the local press, just saying that if this would move forward, this would actually increase the tax burden to the local taxpayer, because the overall bulk of revenue would simply go down. So, either the school districts would then have to cut their budget, or force the tax increases on, the local residents versus the commercial businesses that provide additional investment and also employment in the community. So, not only are we getting the tax revenue, but we're getting additional jobs into the community through the IDA investments.
Is this a bill or something that's being discussed or what?
This is a bill that has not moved, it'll have to be moved through the committee. IDA bills will go through local governments, so it's a Senate bill. And it needs to progress through the system.
And who's sponsoring it?
Senator Ryan.
Senator Ryan,
Yes,
what's the number?
I can get that to you, Wednesday.
Is there an assembly sponsor?
No, I don't believe there's a bill on the other side.
The other point of that too, just for our argument too, is if they become self-guided school district being they, then our board would make changes, make up too, because there'd be no reason to have our 2 school board members on this board if they can't make decisions on it, on their taxing jurisdiction. Right? So we'd have to change our bylaws and our makeup. And
I don't know
everything.
about that. So say it goes through and these guys can go back to the school board and report on everything that it might be advantageous to still have them here so that they can go to the school board and advocate for what we fought for.
What would care school board from appointing the idea is the negotiating authority
Right,
for them.
you'd have, that almost part of this process, because, we have 2 representatives that sit there and everything else, and have been given authority to guide or
I
say.
think these projects would be expected to present, much like they do to us, to the representative school district and make the case. I mean, there's a huge education that would need to happen.
Yeah.
The other 6 members of my school board have no idea what happens, 0 idea that there's even such a thing as an incentive.
Right,
But I would
And
say.
I mean, I think to think about having to educate 700 school districts times on average, probably 7 members, 5,000 school board members in the state on IDAs so that they can dole out incentives is, I mean, it's insurmountable.
and illegal too, because they'd have to legally do things within their costs and everything.
The only
And they would have
thing,
to create bylaws that would support them doing this.
and
I
have their
mean,
policies and.
Yeah, and the reason I brought this up, because that should be part of our argument too, is that you'd have to redefine your, your school, your boards. Whether it's your school board or anything like that.
I would think they'd have to have their own recapture policies and everything. I mean, are the applicants gonna have to report to you and to the school board on their job creation and sales tax spending, and you're creating two layers?
So Jennifer, and I don't know the real property tax law regarding wind energy and. I think it's just wind energy and battery storage, that school districts can opt out of that real, so what we did the windmills originally. Frontier opted out of the real property tax law, whatever. 568, we'll call it. And although the IDA was negotiating with the original windmill folks, Frontier could opt out of that. And like negotiate its own deal with the windmills. But that only has to do with windmill, solar energy and battery storage.
So it's effectively
So there's,
putting that into practice for any type of project as a rule, right?
yeah, I mean, it's just those specific projects that school districts or a municipality can opt out and basically cut the IDA off
And make their own.
and make their
Their own
own
agreement.
negotiation.
Bless you.
We're on the board then? Was it Steel Winds then?
I remember.
Is it the original project or something?
It's the original project.
Oh, yeah. No.
I the bottom line is.
Nuances now.
I remember.
We don't, as a school board, view an incentive as a loss in taxes. I mean, I don't know how you guys discuss it, but I mean. Sure, there's a discussion to be had about whether that should be spread among the other taxpayers, but we don't feel as though it's a lost dollar. Actually, on the flip side, to your point, we view it as a found dollar at 5, 7, 10 years
Yeah.
from now.
Yeah.
When
Well, there's
a
It's potential income.
And in the meantime, you get
pilot. That's money that you didn't have in the coffer before.
Yeah, and I think that's really what the communication will highlight. You bring up a lot of good points that. You know, the school boards potentially may not be the subject matter experts on this, right? Like, so we want the broad majority of the school board representatives to be, you know, versed and skilled in education and socioeconomic factors that affect children, and certainly some business side, and that's why, you know, I think a lot of the boards direct like a business-minded type person, subject matter expertise onto this board. You know, so it's generally not their purview, number one. Number two, you know, in terms of the development perspective, it adds another layer. So it's more risk, it's more time, and that's something that generally puts off of the developers. They'll seek other opportunities in other areas. They'll, you know, decide to go to Kentucky because the path is less strenuous, you know, to achieve their goals. And we want to bring back to the fact that, you know, we have, you know, our own source, which is our own representative, which is the New York State Economic Development Council, that touts the benefits and the, you know, of every dollar of taxes discounted, $6.50 is created in New York tax revenue. So that's your kind of ratio of investment to benefit, which is super lucrative. I'll take that deal for my money. That's what is returned to the state. And then another source, which is the state controller, who tends to be more harsh and scrutinous of IDAs. You know, he talks to the fact that, you know, we've discounted 1.1 billion in exemptions through the state, statewide, but have generated 126 billion in new taxable value. So again, the math on the investments is substantially favorable to the state. So these investments, as they stand today, are very lucrative to the state. So you know, there's not good financial reason to support that we would, you know, go this route and make it a more difficult and risky path for the development community, which we're having enough trouble with. And then we're not talking about the job creation. The state controller, 221,000 and plus new jobs in the state through IDA projects. So that's your return.
I mean, one seems to have a good rapport with Mr. Ryan. Maybe I'm making an assumption, but if you have a chance, if you chitty chat with him, maybe you can ask him, who are these school boards who are complaining that he represents?
So I could find out, but there's two things. If there's not an assembly sponsor, we probably don't got much to worry about.
Yeah,
So you look up a bill, see who else is co-sponsored. It's just him. I mean, a lot of these senators and some of them have tons of bills, and I know Kennedy's got hundreds of bills that sit there for years.
that get no.
He
co-sponsor.
said as much, he was on the news the other day, he said it.
Because, and he doesn't, and the one thing that he fails to state every time somebody gives him a bully is that the ECIDA has a representative of school boards sit on the ECIDA. Erie County School Boards has, their president sits as a voting member of the ECIDA.
I was gonna ask that question, what was their?
Yeah, it's the president of Erie County School Board, sits as ECIDA rep.
We need to go back to the idea of educating people too, about what the IDA does and how it works and the components, because if you don't, you keep on getting that misstatement of facts. That, you know, come off as being the truth when in fact it's not.
Yeah, and I think that's what this piece highlights. The other path, so if I'm a developer and I see all this written where all this goes forward, I'm gonna seek 485 incentives, you know, that are generally, they're not as promoted in Hamburg. We have a program. But for the city, for example, you'll seek your 485 exemption, which is another path for real property tax abatement. However, there's no management of that. There's no job creation requirement. There's no investment level commitment. So there's a lot of potential. There's a lot less skin in the game for the developers and a lot less tracking, we have all these mechanisms involved with the IDA that we're tracking, we're getting the data on the return on the investments. Vis-a-vis, all this from the state controller and the Economic Development Council. So pushing them in a different path would, open up looser types of management where we don't even know.
There's no recapture either.
So, yeah,
There's not.
because there's no rules and there's nothing to recapture.
I would
Yes,
just
Andy.
say that, my fellow board members, that I remember a couple years ago, we were talking about the natural gas, I think. A bill that was on the Senate floor in New York State that was never gonna go, and we brought it up and said this would be a hit inhibiting the development, oh, that will never happen, never happen. I've actually had people tell me that. It's not law.
Well, you gotta control the narrative too, to your point, control the narrative. To what you wanna say, like, we have to say all the good things we've done, which, we've all been here quite a bit. Especially under Sean, we got a lot of shit accomplished, right? So we need everyone to know that. Now, are we unique in the IDA, like Hamburg? Are we just the best at what we do?
Of course we are.
I mean, are there other IDAs that aren't doing so well,
Well, there's,
you know?
IDAs do need, and this goes back to you, they need responsible, knowledgeable boards. They need good attorney representation, they need a good director, so there are components that make IDAs, strong. Now, what happens is, among the 100 plus, I think 115 or so IDAs, when one or two go follow, and do something that is not in line with the best interests of the community, that represent their own conflicts of interest, then we're all called under the carpet. So, there's been a couple recent examples within Western New York, and it's not a good look to the, to all the other ones, the other 99.5% that are driving this investment, that are responsible and, fiscally accountable to that.
But that's everything. You look at politicians, we don't paint all politicians the same brush as the ones that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't get into that. I mean, that's everywhere. That's every business, every entity has that.
So, no, it's been, and we have a well-balanced board with representation from the taxing jurisdictions. So it's organized in a fashion that, can be accountable to the taxpayers and has the representatives at the table to, to voice concerns for their, constituents.
This is my last suggestion, that if this does catch legs, to your point, if it starts to catch legs, we're just ready to go. And it sounds like you already are. And if we, if we have to go up, on our own time to Albany to lobby on this and say how good we are, I think you'd be a great representative to go up there and talk to some representatives and say, hey, hang on a second, this is what we do in Hamburg and Erie County and how successful we've been. What this bill is saying and the narrative is false, so.
Yeah, and I think, pushing out this communication would, like you were saying, and like Bob's saying, like control the narrative, communicate the benefits to, to what's going on here. And not, taking the duck and cover, potentially until it's too late, path to go, to go after this and really celebrate, the hard work and the investments that this board, and the community in terms of planning and efforts to develop industrial sites has exerted.
A better piece of legislation would be to have a school board member on the IDA.
Yeah, like like a ex officio type requirement.
Just a really practical part. So is there a way we can get this kind of letter out on the social media and bulleted?
Yeah, we just wanted to,
Boost it.
we don't necessarily need board approval, just, just wanted to make the board aware, of the, like we always do, of any potential legislation that would be anti-IDA and the path that we're taking to really just communicate the benefits of what you all do. Okay? And that, unless anyone has any questions, concludes my report. Next, on to new business, we have Fisher Rental Properties, which is seeking consent to a new mortgage. So I have a resolution of the Town of Hamburg Industrial Development Agency consenting to a mortgage and a general assignment of rent in an amount not to exceed 2.5 million in connection with the refinancing of the 2008 Fisher Rental Properties LLC project. Whereas to accomplish the purposes of the act, the agency induced Fisher Rental Properties to commence with the construction of approximately 18,000 square foot building on an approximately 7.8 acre parcel of land located at 5173 Southwestern Boulevard in Hamburg. And the installation of machinery and equipment required in connection therewith for lease to the agency to be subleased to the lessee, to be subleased to Fisher Moving and Storage Incorporated and Niagara Scenic Tours, all for the operation of commercial storage, repair and office facility. In furtherance of said purpose, the agency adopted this inducement on October 16, 2007, and amended it in the same of August 26, 2008. Whereas the agency has now received a request for the agency's consent to the execution and delivery by Fisher Rental Properties LLC of a mortgage and general assignment of rents not to exceed 2.5 million to M&T Bank. Whereas the facility will remain a commercial storage, repair and office facility. Accordingly, there will be no change in the payment in lieu of taxes provisions attached to the leaseback agreement. The agency hereby now therefore be resolved as follows. The agency hereby consents to the execution and delivery of a mortgage, general assignment of rents with respect to the lease to the agency and the leaseback agreement. The execution and delivery of the mortgage documents in the form approved by the chairman, vice chair, executive director, or assistant secretary is hereby authorized. The appropriate officers of the agency are hereby authorized to execute, seal, acknowledge, and deliver such certificate. The execution and delivery of the mortgage documents shall be conclusive evidence of due authorization and approval. So move, thank you, Cam.
Second.
Thank you, Andy. On the question,
Yeah, I just want to point out that according to this December 31st, 2024, their benefit tax, their tax breaks expire. They're not coming before us for new tax breaks. We're just continuing the same thing going forward.
that is correct. In their current all-time pilot payments and employment reporting.
Right.
Right. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, next item under new business is resolution to adopt the standard project agent agreement. As we move forward, we're updating various policies. I would like the project agent agreement, which is essentially our contract with developers once a resolution for incentives are approved. And we want to make some revisions to that contract to be further in line with agency policy. This came up at our executive committee meeting last Wednesday. I've reviewed the document and we're going to meet with agency counsel on nailing down the recommendations, bring it back to the executive committee and then to the board for approval. So at this time, I would ask please for a motion to table that and then to carry it under unfinished business for July.
Motion to table.
Second.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Wentz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, other item, we have our key energy tour for those that are interested in participating Friday at 2 o'clock. Unfinished business. Paris reporting, we've been carrying this. We have companies with a shortfall. We have 5 companies that are under their employment goals that they have committed to the IDA through Paris. We've been providing notice to the companies and they've been commenting on, various problems that have caused the employment shortfall since COVID. But now we are through the executive committee, we're going to issue demand that these companies need to achieve the level of employment that they committed to with the incentives or face recapture. So we're gonna provide these companies 6 months notice to get to standard. Some of them, there's 4 out of 5 need a couple jobs to get to their numbers. There's one that needs more. Well, we're gonna provide 6 months where they need to get to these numbers and then maintain these numbers going forward or face recapture.
I appreciate the executive committee's work on this. It's just as important as to encourage development. It's also important to encourage the companies to uphold their end of the bargain.
Next is the recapture policy with material terms. I have a motion to adopt the revised Town of Hamburg Industrial Development Agency policy for recapture, including material terms as of June 21st, 2023. So thank you, Bob. Thank you, Jamel. On the question, does anybody, just to highlight
It's
the,
this one here, right?
yes.
Is it both or
So
just?
essentially, for the recapture policy, I'll explain what's going on here. The inducement recapture policy that we've had really just required these companies to maintain their employment commitment for 1 year. We want to modify the policy and make it stronger where they need to maintain their employment commitment for the duration of the pilot. So if you have a 7-year abatement, you maintain your employment commitment for 7 years for potentially face recapture. So going through the employment reporting, we noticed that this was rather lax and we needed to, increase it and it makes perfect sense that while you're receiving abatements, you need to maintain, your level of commitment. That's where we're at. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried, thank you. Next is the combined fee schedule. I have a motion to adopt the revised Town of Hamburg Industrial Development Agency combined fee schedule as of June 21st, 2023. So move.
So moved.
Second, oh, to the chair.
Bob and Bob.
The B&B show.
Okay, on the question. Essentially what we're doing here, just to clarify, is we're adding a nominal fee of $300 for companies that are seeking sales tax exemptions to compensate for the time and labor involved with appearing in front of the IDA board, preparing the resolutions, filing the documentation with the state of New York. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have a couple reminders for sexual harassment training. A couple people out there still. Next item, privilege of the floor. Executive session. Motion to adjourn the June 24th, 2023 IDA meeting at 8:21 a.m.
So moved. So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jamel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next meeting, July 19th, 2023. Are you doing okay, Wentz?
Yeah, I gotta run out probably in 2 minutes.
All right, next item is the June 21st, 2003 Hamburg, New York Land Development Corporation meeting. Start with roll call. Cam Hall.
Here.
Bob Hutchison, Jan McGregor Clark, Thomas Moses.
Here.
Andy Palmer.
Here.
Jamel Perkins.
Here.
Dave Spakowski.
Here.
Bob Reynolds.
Here.
Wentz Valentine.
Here.
Okay, motion to open the June 21st, 2023 Hamburg, New York Land Development Corporation Board of Directors meeting at 8:21 a.m.
So